Welcome to this edition of Platform. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Experts have described Nigeria as rich in water resources, that many of its 36 states are named after rivers. They pointed out that in addition to surface water found in nearly all parts of the country, Nigeria is blessed with substantial quantity of stored water in the ground. In spite of the abundance of water, therefore, Nigeria still faces challenges of water pollution, water distribution, water scarcity, and general water resources development. This edition of Platform examines issues of water resources, use, abuse, and regulation in Nigeria. Our guest is Nigeria's Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering from the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and also a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Engineers. Engineer Suleiman Adamu has been Minister of Water Resources from 2015 to date, having been reappointed on the same capacity by President Muhammadu Buhari after his second-term victory in 2019. Where is Nigeria with the national water policy, and to what extent are Nigerians complying with the Order 009 entitled the Open Defecation-Free Nigeria by 2025 and other related matters? These are the issues we shall be taking on the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, Nigeria's Minister of Water Resources. Welcome to Platform.
Thank you.
With me on the panel, Musbah Odamuhab, who is, I can say, NTA's Water Resources Correspondent. He is also with the NTA News 24.
Good to be here.
The assistant producer of the program is our permanent panelist, Ruth Agwele, NTA Network Current Affairs Unit.
Thank you very much for having me.
Honorable Minister, welcome again to Platform. Let's begin. What is the state of water resources in Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is blessed with a lot of water resources. Like you rightly mentioned, states, many of our states are named after rivers. And we have the River Niger and River Benue flowing across this country, right from the middle of the country or from the upper fringes, the northern fringes of the country. So Nigeria is what we call an economically water scarce country, but it's not a water scarce country per se, because per capita we have 1,800 cubic meters per year. That is, if you spread the available water resources in the country, each individual has 1,800 cubic meters available water. Unfortunately, our major challenge is not the availability of water, but the spread. I mean the allocation of the resource. Bear in mind that this is good for the country because the minimum required for a water sufficient country is 1,000 cubic meters per capita per day. So we have like almost twice. Our problem is management and distribution and management. And that has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with our economy, the level of financial resources available. It has to do with the climate change issues. It has to do with our terrain, the geography of the country. And also, to some extent, it also has to do with attitude in terms of giving priority to water resources issues by governments.
All right, Honorable Minister, it's good that you have established the fact that this water is there, it's just to harness it. So why are we having this difficulty in managing these resources to the benefit of the people?
Well, I would like to say that in the last 50 years, successive administrations have done fairly well in trying to harness our water resources, especially from the drought of 1973. It was it made such a huge impact that that was the beginning of strategic effort to harness our water resources. And today in this country we have like over 400 reservoirs. The federal government alone has been able to build over 200, maybe close to 240. basically to harness water for irrigation, for drinking across the country. And the biggest challenge is actually in the Sahelian region, where climate change and desertification have made inroad and made availability of water a bit difficult for people. But in the coastal areas, the middle section of the country and the southern parts, there is quite an abundant availability of water, only that we need to harness it against floods and so on. So it's been business, it's been like a continuous program, but unfortunately, although we've had a water resources master plan in the country, but in the last 20 years, it hasn't been strictly followed. And I think if that had been done, probably would have been a little bit more better off than we are. But also, this climate change phenomenon is such a big problem. And water goes with the climate. And when there is continuous change, you find out that a lot of things are also, your plants are also affected. And therefore, you need to review from time to time. So lots of things that we would have wanted to do, like I said, are also being affected by climate change. But we need to be up and do, we need to be one step ahead. But of course, the resources, and I also would say that successive administrations in the last 20 years have not really given much priority to this sector. And therefore, the funding has not been there. We have like some strategic projects that are identified in the Water Resources Master Plan that need to be done to alleviate some of these problems. But they have not been implemented.
Okay, and you mentioned flood earlier, and just recently NIMET brought out its prediction for the year 2020. What would you tell us about the implementation of the flood management master plan as regard River Niger and River Benue? Because the rains will come.
Yeah, River Benue is also a tributary of the River Niger. So let me talk basically about the River Niger. Although a lot of the flood downstream has not been caused by River Niger, but on account of activities across our boundary in Cameroon with the Lagdo Dam and so on. But River Niger is a unique river. It flows across the Sahara and carries with it a lot of sediment and comes into Nigeria. So over time, it's been, the channel has been filling up and widening and affecting, communities on the banks. And that makes it shallow. So if the river is shallow, of course, it will spread out. And depending on the cycle, the rainy season, the climate cycle, sometimes it pours in quite a lot of water. But I would also say that it's interesting for you to know that 80% of the water in the country is also generated, our water is generated within the country. So you have rivers, Donga, Katsina Ala, Wuka, and all those are from the Mambila Highlands. Then you have the river Sokoto, you have river Kaduna, all flowing into this Niger and Benue rivers. So we feel that it's high time, just like other great rivers of the world were tamed and retrained and redeveloped, like River Danube in Hungary. This is something that River Niger requires now. We call it river training. That means we need to do a lot of study to rechannel the river where it is flowing into some communities, straighten it out, deepen some sections, reclaim certain areas, create islands. It's quite an elaborate engineering thing. We have to construct what we have, groins and so on, so that you reduce the sedimentation and you also protect the banks. This is a study that since 2016 we have tried to do in my ministry. Unfortunately, they were supposed to have some funding from the Hungarian government to be able to do that. But as we were discussing, there was a change of government, and those kind of things happened. So
change of government in Hungary?
In Hungary, okay. And therefore it was, maybe the new government didn't feel it was its priority. But we are still talking, and at the end of the day, if we find out this is not possible, we may have to look inwards to be able to get the resources to do it. But this is not a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year project. the study alone will take like 2-3 years, but if we are going to meticulously follow the master plan, it will take like 10, 15, 20 years to get it done. So it's for generations. It's not necessarily something that we ourselves must benefit from, but this is something that we really want to do. In the long run, if we, as you know, meticulously follow this plan, we're able to do the study and follow the plan, maybe in another 20, 25 years, Rivers Niger and Benue will be a different ballgame entirely. We'll have navigation, we'll have tourism, then we have the banks, and we have all the fertile land, on the banks reclaimed, and agriculture will boost. There's quite a lot of potential there, but it's a lot of engineering work that needs to be done.
Tell us more about the other aspects of the master plan, aside from reclaiming or redistributing River Niger.
Well, the National Water Resources Master Plan has identified quite a number of things. For instance, we have some interbasin transfers, what we call interbasin transfer, within the country, where you can take some excess water to channel it into a less, where water is less available, a scarce water area. For instance, the Howell interbasin transfer. That we're trying to, because under this administration, we've resolved that all the major interventions that we'll do in the water sector must be those as identified in the Water Resources Master Plan. So that is one. The idea of, retraining the River Niger is also something that is there. Of course, there are quite a number of other things like our hydro power projects, like Bambila Hydropower Project, and so many other, because we have like potential of 14,000 megawatts of hydropower in the country, and we have exploited maybe just about 20%. So we're also looking into that, and we're talking with a lot of potential investors to come into those kind of things. Quite a number of dams also, and irrigation schemes that we're also pursuing, like the Lafia irrigation project, the Donga irrigation project, and we're all bringing those out on board now. Although we have limited resources in the country, but we still feel it's better we start these projects now, because if we don't start, we don't know when else that is possible. So we're looking at those critical projects instead of wasting resources on small projects that have, although I wouldn't say they are not important, but they serve just a limited number of people, to the disadvantage of these strategic water resources interventions that need to be done to manage the water resources of the entire country. So we need to look into that.
Now, when you say small projects, I want you to clarify on that, because I know not too long the ministry did a technical audit and discovered about 116 projects, dams, the ones that are abandoned, and irrigation projects. Now, are they all inclusive, and what has been done in terms of completion? I know some of them have already been commissioned.
Yeah, so far out of the 116, we've been able to complete more than 20, and it's work in progress.
From 2015 to date?
From 2015, we've been able to commission quite a number of water supply projects and some dam projects, and even some irrigation projects. And even in 2020, we hope to commission some. There are certain projects that were started in 1992, never finished, but this year we hope like the Zobe water supply project started in 1992. We're going to finish it this year, maybe in the next 2-3 months, we're going to commission that project. We have projects like Kontagora Auna Dam that was started in 1987 and abandoned. We're working on that now. We have like Gary irrigation project that was started in 1998-99, abandoned for 17 years. We've taken it out and we're working on it, and there's a lot of work in progress. So we have quite a number of these projects going on. What I mean by small projects, there are certain projects that are maybe, confined to certain communities. If for instance, state governments would take on those projects and do them on their own and allow the federal government to deal with those strategic projects, would have been better off. But you find out that we have been intervening at federal level, we'll be intervening in projects that we feel ought to be projects that ordinarily state government should be able to do. If you look at Tiga Dam, for instance, Tiga Dam is probably the largest earth dam in the country. It was built by Kano State government by direct labor. It was only after it was built, the irrigation system had been, work had started on the irrigation system, that the federal government took over that project. So if the states would manage their resources very well, they should be able to take up this project. And that's why I'm a bit concerned also with over 200 dams that were built. Our responsibility is to provide the bulk water, and it is the responsibility of the states to now harness, to take this water, tap into it, maybe for drinking, and maybe also create some irrigation systems around for the people. But there are quite a number of dams that are lying fallow and silting up since the federal government built the dams.
For example, the Goronyo Dam.
Yes, well, Goronyo, we have done quite a lot. There's close to 4,000 hectares of irrigation, if not more, and it has a potential for much more than that. That is still in the hands of federal government. But if you take example, this dam, Owena Dam in Ondo State, for instance, that was built a long time ago, and then the federal government even went a step further to build a water treatment plant, which is now close to 10 years old. And until probably this government, the current state government came on board, nothing really was done. The dam is meant for the state government to tap and supply water to Akure and other communities, but it was never done. Until at least, but I give credit to this administration by Governor Akeredolu, because they're trying to do something now with the support of the French Development Agency. So these are the kind of things I would have expected them to be doing, but that hasn't been happening. And that is the kind of message we're trying to put back to the state, that look, you need to do more, you need to invest more in water. Federal government alone cannot be in every community providing drinking water for people when it is essentially the responsibility of the state. So if the federal government is, freed of all those kind of interventions, we'll be able to harness all our monies and put them in those strategic projects. And that has been one of the problems why this hasn't been much progress been made.
The star project, if I can call it so, of the federal government now is the Kashimbila Dam, in terms of the enormity and potentials that it has. Where are we now?
Kashimbila Dam was finished and impounded in 2017. That's 2 years ago. A lot of pressure was mounted on me to commission it. I said no, because it has other value added. There is a 40 megawatts power plant that we did. It was ready. It's been ready also since 2017. But another ministry was responsible for the transmission line, Ministry of Power, and it wasn't ready. So we finished the dam, finished the power plant, which is incorporated into the dam, but the transmission line has not been ready. We also have a water supply company, we have an irrigation company, and these are the phases, let's say phase 2. But I said, what's the point in commissioning this dam? We have commissioned like over 200 dams in this country and they're not doing anything. I said, until we can see that this transmission line is finished, we have value added, we can say Kashimbila, hydropower, and water supply and irrigation projects, multi-purpose, I don't see any point in just commissioning a dam. But luckily, I understand that the transmission line is almost finished now, and so it's for us now to discuss. Once I get a report to that effect from the Ministry of Power, then we can set a date for the formal commissioning. And it's very important for us to do that. We're also in the process of trying to concession it, because just like we concessioned the 30 megawatts Gurara water supply and the hydropower project, because it's not something that the ministry would want to run. We don't have the capacity to run. And the whole idea, ab initio, was to do this and then hand it over to a concessionaire who will be able to run it.
Which concessionaire are you looking at now? I hope it won't be the case of Ajaokuta, whereby the Russians were dispossessed.
No. It's going to be keenly contested, just the same way as it was done with the Gurara. The concession of Gurara was won by one of the companies that is running the major hydropower projects that we have in the country. I think Shiroro, maybe North-South Power. They were the ones that won, and it was keenly contested. and we're in the process of handing over the entire scheme to them. Again, what has delayed that was because there is a link, a transmission link between Kudenda and Mando Road in Kaduna, because the power is supposed to be evacuated to Kaduna, which has not been completed since 2011 when the contract was awarded. And that, unfortunately, that transmission line was not even started until after the power plant was ready. Whereas this thing should have started, at the same time. Exactly.
Now, Honorable Minister, like you rightly mentioned, Kashimbila is already impounding water, meaning that it's already performing the basic objective for which it was initiated. People down the stream of 5 states, talking about Taraba State, Benue, Cross River, and so Kogi, can now sleep with their 2 eyes closed. Now, Kashimbila is performing this function. Another dam that is supposed to do that, when the water comes from Lake Nyos, Kashimbila will impound it, will contain it for our own usage. Now, another dam that is supposed to serve the same purpose in Adamawa State now is Dasin Hausa Dam, to contain whatever comes out of Lagdo Dam. So what has happened to that Dasin Hausa Dam?
Well, when I came into office, because of the enormity of financial obligations on us, what we inherited, I inherited a debt profile of 89 billion naira, and with the projection of maybe require about 300 billion naira to complete the existing projects that I met on ground. So we took a strategic decision that we're not going to start any new projects during the last 4 years, and we didn't, so that we could concentrate. We prioritized the projects that we inherited and took the ones that we thought are very, very important and beneficial, and decided to concentrate on them so that we could maximize on the available resources. Now, proposals that were, Dancing Hausa was still a proposal, and it still is. But what we thought was we selected a number of projects and said, okay, can we get to do these projects based on a PPP model or BOT? BOT is a form of PPP. And we got only one company initially that was interested. We signed an MOU with them, meaning that they would get the finances, because Dancing Hausa also has a potential of 150 megawatts hydropower. So there is a potential for an investor to put in money and make some money out of it in the end and recover his investment. Unfortunately, the only company that showed interest later came back to say that they had done the numbers and they didn't think it was economically viable. So the issue now is we have so many projects lying on the table. Some have, a lot of money has been spent. So it makes more sense to deal with those projects where a lot of investment has already been made than to go and start touching projects that at least, some greenfield projects, the projects that have not started, then we start investing money again. So we'll spread ourselves too thin. It makes more sense for us to spend the limited resources that we have on those ongoing projects and finish them. And when they are done, when we're finished with them, we can now begin to pick those other ones that are important. I don't think lack of commencement of Dancing Hausa will have any serious effect if Cameroon sticks to the memorandum of understanding that we had, that if they need to open to release water from Lagdo Dam, they must inform us, give us sufficient notice so that we can warn communities downstream that water is coming, and we'll be able to take all the necessary measures to provide emergency services.
You mentioned part PPP. Now, I know that the burden is, from what you're saying, is huge for the ministry if the ministry must meet the target of completing some of these projects. And recently you disclosed in an article I read about investment on some of these initiatives to meet the vast population of Nigeria. What other strategic areas would you look at? Now, Nigeria, we've entered into a lot of bilateral relations with other countries, and most of the things we're selling to these countries, it's usually maybe in other sectors. What about some of these projects? Are they something, that can be looked into?
Well, we're very active in our two major transboundary organizations, the Niger Basin Authority and the Lake Chad Basin Commission. And Nigeria provides power to, at least I know it provides power to Niger. And
Benin Republic.
And Benin, yes. So that is there. I'm not sure, we also have a thirst for power ourselves. So all those schemes that we're talking about, we have the potential to produce a lot of hydropower, hydropower, but this power, we also need it within the country. Because there are lots of communities that are not, we have a serious energy crisis, as you very well know, for decades now. So we're not looking outwards on those things. But let me come down to other areas like irrigation, like fisheries, aquaculture. There are huge potentials for that, for us to cultivate exotic crops and so on that can be exported. And that's one reason why we started the Songhai Sustainable Development agricultural practice. We're trying to encourage that in all our river basins, and we've started with pilot projects there. I've also been talking about the potentials in aquaculture. All these dams that are lying fallow, investors can come. There's the modern, what we call cage fish farming. It's of course initially it's capital extensive, but it's also something that you can do to put these dams into use. And I have seen it. I've seen in one of the dams, Oyan Dam, which is under the Ogun Osun River Basin Development Authority. There are like 3 or 4 companies, private companies doing aquaculture, and I understand that 1 or 2 of those companies are exporting the fish, tilapia, out of the country. Meanwhile, we're also busy importing tilapia. Why? So if we can harness these dams, there's quite a lot we can do. Now some of our river basins are trying to introduce greenhouse projects and so on and so forth. That is the kind of thing we'd like to see. So there's the potentials are endless, and we can also go to the extent of agri-processing and so forth and so on. And our river basins are doing that, only that they are doing it to a limited scale. Some are doing palm kernel, some are doing dry fish. If you come to some of our exhibitions during the World Water Days, you see quite a number of things that the river basins have been able to do. But to up the scale, I think that is what has been lacking, and these are things that we need to do. So there are the huge potentials for economic activities within the ambit of the Ministry of Water Resources.
Okay, you already mentioned the Songhai model for the River Basin Development Authorities. We're going to talk more about that. But I'm also aware of their national irrigation plan targeting 500,000 hectares by 2030. How far have you gone going to the dry season now?
We said we will have, under that program, that we'll have about 100,000 hectares additional by 2020. We're very close to that, and 2020 is just beginning. I think we're about 89,000 hectares now. So I'm hoping that we'll get the additional 12,000 hectares before the end of the year. So it's in stages. We know what we want by 2020. We have another set that we want to do, another additional hectare that we want by 2023, and going on up to 2030. Most of it, the trimming project is ongoing, basically no hitch. Then, like I said earlier, we are bringing in new projects like the Donga and the Nasarawa irrigation project, that if we're able to do that, we can bring in like 25,000 hectares addition from those 2 projects alone. And some of it, there are some irrigation systems that we already have, but virtually require a lot of rehabilitation. They've not been working, and we're trying to bring them up to installed capacity. So I would say that we're on course, but meeting the intermediate targets may not be possible. Like I said, if we're not able to get to 100,000 hectares by 2020, but we're able to get 90,000 hectares, for instance, I think we have done quite well. But the target is we must try to reach this 500,000 hectares by 2030. So we're on course. What is a bit worrisome to me is that under that program, we're also trying to unleash, just between the Niger and Benue basins alone, we have 1.8 million hectares of land potential for irrigation. So we want the private sector to tap into this kind of resource that we have. But going forward, I hope that more companies will come on board to take this large tract of land and put it to use, even if it is used as an outgrower program, using the same communities to help to improve their irrigation skills, giving them modern cultivation techniques and so on, and partnering with the peasant farmers to be able to raise the stakes. That's what we're hoping eventually.
Still on irrigation and the Lake Chad basin that you talked about, what is the position of things now? Because President Buhari has been championing the need for the African Union to support Nigeria and support the Lake Chad basin countries to further re-engineer the Lake Chad that is drying. What is the state of things as Water Resources Minister?
Well, first of all, I will give a lot of credit to President Muhammadu Buhari because he has really brought the issue of the drying of Lake Chad into focus internationally. Everybody is talking about it up to the United Nations. Although I would say many countries, especially in the West, are skeptical, but they still understand that part of the security problems that we have is associated with the shrinkage of the lake, which has over time shrunk by as much as 90% of its storage capacity 50 years ago. There are quite a number of issues. Then we had the successful conference in February 2018 on Lake Chad here in Abuja, and also, that was what gingered the African Union. So, diplomatically, if you PR-wise, I think we've done quite well.
We've been able to raise awareness.
Yeah, we've been able to raise awareness on that. But then the next thing is the technical detail of it. We've had a consensus at that conference. The conference aimed to achieve two things: to reach an international consensus that there is a need to save the Lake Chad from extinction. We got that. Second objective was to reach a consensus on how to save the Lake Chad. And we also got a consensus that the Trans-Aqua project, drawing water, 8% of the water resource in the Congo Basin into Lake Chad, will be the most feasible, the most sensible approach. It's quite expensive. We're talking about moving water 2,400 kilometers across a watershed. It has its technical and environmental challenges and even political challenges, because we have in Central Africa a lot of crises. We have some areas of the Congo saying, member countries of the Congo Basin, they are still not sure what it is. But these are things that can be resolved through what we call hydropolitics. It will come to that. But it's a long-term project, and it requires a lot of investment. The engineering study alone can take anything from 5 to 10 years, and that is where we're starting now. We have identified the need that, on a short-term basis, what we need to do is to improve what we call improvement of the hydrolicity of rivers Lagon and River Chari. These are the two rivers that bring in water into the lake, and that's where we're starting. So, if you imagine, you think that because the water is flowing from the Congo, that we're going to maybe start the project from the Congo and move into Chad. But actually what we intend to do is to move backwards. If we're starting from the Lake Chad itself, from the mouth of the Lake Chad. If we improve the hydrolicity, experts have advised that if we improve the hydrolicity of these two rivers, in the short term to medium term, we can still get improvement in the flow into the lake. And that will at least save it for some time. But long-term solution is to have this interbasin water transfer project, or what we call the Trans-Aqua project. And we're not going to relent on that. We're still going to continue.
Who is going to be thinking about the funding? Nigeria? ECOWAS?
No. This is a multilateral...
African Union? The United Nations?
Yes. What we have done is we have been able to get the African Union to accept this as a Pan-African project, the same way that they accepted the Great Green Wall project. And that means it has an international recognition. So it's for us to shop for money. But what we have said is, at that conference, is why don't we look inwards? African Development Bank, for instance, can be the umbrella or the platform to start raising money. We set a figure of about $50 billion. The $50 billion is not for Lake Chad interbasin water transfer alone. We are saying let African Development Bank set up an infrastructure, a Pan-African infrastructure development fund that can fund Lake Chad interbasin water transfer and maybe other projects that we've been talking about. The future of Africa is in transportation. We need navigational waters. We need roads to link our countries. With this new free trade arrangement, we need rails, we need aviation. So the future is in infrastructure. If we must integrate Africa, we must deal with the transportation issue. We must be able to connect. We even said Africans should even tax themselves. We can have some funds, we can have people can make a contribution. There are so many ways. We do not want to be tied, always going with our balls begging the international community.
Exactly the point, Honorable Minister. African countries, particularly those involved, need to do something about it. At that conference, I remember the government of Italy made commitments of some assistance. Now, what are the countries in Africa doing, committing to this project?
Well, for now, it's just the Lake Chad Basin countries, but like I said, the African Development Bank, President Buhari wrote to the President of the African Development Bank requesting him to lead the process. And he has taken it very, very seriously. At every platform that we met with President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, he was always talking about doing this. And that's why he went and even got the UN Secretary General involved. So there's a lot of progress. Like I said, all the monies cannot be generated here because we have to face our reality, but we must be seen to be doing something. Nigeria, for instance, was the first to spend $5 million on the study of this interbasin water transfer. So, and now we are also going to raise $2 million for the next phase of the study. The money from Italy, unfortunately, after the pledge, there was a change of government, and that government didn't feel, the new government didn't feel that Lake Chad was an issue for it. But luckily, now we have a Nigerian who is a senator in the Italian parliament.
Very well. And
I was just recently informed that he pursued this matter to the extent that now it is in the 2021 budget of the Italian government, and by 2021 they must release this 1.5 million euro for this study.
Okay, now you have talked about the technicalities involved in this. For the ordinary man who is listening right now, we want to understand what are the economic benefits regarding, this Lake Chad Basin project.
Oh, quite a lot. The money we're spending on security now, for instance, if there is peace, we don't need to spend it. There's a lot of potential for agriculture in that area. Nigeria, before the shrinkage of the Lake Chad, South Chad irrigation project, we had 60,000 hectares of land for wheat production. Now it's totally gone because the water has receded. We can't get it. So quite a number of grazing reserves are there. You have people that will be better educated. You have better children will be nourished. And there will be life bubbling around that place, And basically, it's an agrarian area. So don't expect things like hydropower and so on and so. But at least you have peace and security. That's number one. And secondly, you develop the agricultural potential to the fullest. And thirdly, if we have the interbasin transfer, is one of the things, along with it, about the concept of the Trans-Aqua project, it said that it will improve the navigability of the River Lagon and the Ubangi River, for instance, in particular, and that you can have a link between Central Africa and the Congo Basin. You can have boats flying around. You can move goods on tugboats and barges. And then there's also the idea associated with the Trans-African Highway on the same corridor that can take. There's always been, since we were younger in our university, there's always been talk about the Lagos-Mombasa Highway. And it's also something that is being tied to this, at least, this is an aspiration that if that project is done, it opens up the whole space there. there is a huge potential for economic growth, an unprecedented potential, I can tell you.
Honorable Mr. Let's come back home now. We've talked about the water distribution, the challenges, but we have not talked about the pollution, water pollution across Nigeria. Was that the reason why you came up with the Open Defecation Free Nigeria for 2025 order? And if yes, where are we in terms of compliance?
It's not exactly so, but they are related, because water pollution, there are so many aspects to it. Industries are polluting the waters, but you know, the responsibility for policing those aspects rests with the Ministry of Environment. But yes, our waters are polluted, and for us that are in charge or involved with aspects of drinking water, that is a serious, serious problem. I know certain communities in my state, Jigawa, that there's a huge prevalence of kidney disease now over the last few years, and it has been attributed to some of the heavy metals that are coming out as waste products from the Chala industrial area in Kano. We did that study in the National Water Resources Institute. Then, of course, we don't have this, you know, there's a look at the oil producing areas also. Our communities within the riverine areas, within the Delta region, where oil is being exploited, you see a lot of oil film on top of the water. These are quite serious questions, but like I said, these are matters for Ministry of Environment. But open defecation, which is a serious matter. It's a culture in this country, it's a practice in many developing countries, and part of the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal 6.2, deals with issues of sanitation, that we must have an improved sanitation in the world at large. And if we're able to just stop open defecation in this country, I can assure you we would have sorted out 50% of our health problem.
Is that even possible? Because this is something that is really common in the rural communities.
It is very possible. We have 47 million Nigerians practicing open defecation. Yes, it is a culture, I know. But it was also a culture in India, it was a culture in Pakistan, it was a culture in Indonesia, and they have zero open defecation.
Are you looking at having decent public toilets? Because if there are public toilets, then maybe that is one way to go.
It goes with that. But do you know that there are lots of communities in this country that it is taboo for them to do toilets in their houses?
So how are you going to change that?
Behavioral change, that's the campaign. That's why we're doing it. It's a carrot and stick approach. We have an executive order, we're going to enforce it, we're going to have legislation. But what we've been doing, and we have succeeded in freeing 20 local governments and over 20,000 communities out of the practice in the last few years, the last 5 years or so.
In how many states?
About 3 or 4 states. So if we can do it with them, there's no reason why we can do it for this country. And if India can move 550 million people, stop them from that practice in 4 years, in 5 years, I don't see why we cannot stop 47 million Nigerians from practicing open defecation in the next 5 years. I'm optimistic, I'm confident that it can be done. We have tested methods, called it community-led total sanitation. It has worked. All the communities that are ODF, we always go back to check on them, and they are very proud of their achievement, that people no longer defecate in the open. So we have to attack schools, get schools, education institutions to have proper toilets, get our health institutions to have proper toilets, get our offices. Because you find that even government buildings, you don't get decent toilets.
Yes.
We must stop this culture. And the campaign, we're going to spend money on advocacy, but we are asking people to change their behavior. And this is a personal issue. Sanitation is personal.
Yes.
It affects you. So if you know it affects, if you didn't know, now we're making you aware of the fact that this issue affects your health, affects the health of your family. Stop it. And after a certain time, if people don't stop, we'll enforce it. We will not start punishing people if they are defecating open when we have not provided public toilets. So we're encouraging the FCT to do that. We're encouraging state governments to do that. Mind you, the federal government is the driver. but we are not going to be the ones implementing this. Everybody from top to bottom must be involved. The states must play their role, the local governments must play their role, traditional institutions, religious institutions, Nollywood, everybody, the media, we all have a role to play in this. And that is what India did and mobilized everybody, the biggest ever kind of mobilization. And we're taking that template for India, and we think it's doable because India and Nigeria have had a lot in common, including even our government structure. So this is where we are
so
going.
So in India film industry. Anyway, let's very quickly round up with the national water policy. In your first term as minister, now you're serving your second term. I remember that was one of the things you said you will want to bring a bill to the National Assembly to ensure that the water policy comes to fruition. Where are we? We're in the 9th Assembly now. There was the 8th and the 7th Assembly in the previous administrations. Now, is the bill still at the National Assembly? At what level is it now?
Well, let's separate the two. There is a water resources policy and there is a water resources bill. The water resources policy stopped at the Federal Executive Council. It was passed and we're implementing it. The water resources bill is what went to the National Assembly. Successfully went through public hearings and got passed at the House of Representatives, but made some problem in the Senate. And I don't know whether it was the condition at that time, but people turned the bill upside down, calling it a Fulani herdsman bill and so on and so on, which is what it is not, because that bill was drafted in 2006, and Buhari came into office in 2015. You know, so 9 years before he came into office. It went through all the necessary roadshows through the geopolitical zones. And then when I came into office, I also brought it before the National Council of Water Resources meeting, where all the commissioners for all the 36 states of the Federation were present. We discussed it, we agreed.
And they endorsed?
Yes, they endorsed it before I took it to the Federal Executive Council and got it endorsed by the Council, where 36 ministers representing each of the states of the Federation were there before we now took it to the National Assembly. The House of Reps didn't find anything wrong with it. Some senators found a problem with it. They asked certain questions. Before you knew it, it had gone, I wouldn't say, well, I can say viral, so to speak. And I started seeing so many, all sorts of commentaries here and there.
We're in the 9th Assembly. Are you thinking of...
I'm very, very optimistic. During my screening exercise as minister, the Senate President made a commitment that the bill will be revisited. And as I'm talking to you, we're already discussing with the relevant organs of the National Assembly to represent this bill. We have addressed some of the issues and that people were worried about. Usually it's just maybe 1 or 2 words that was making some people uncomfortable. We'll be addressing all that and we'll be representing before the National Assembly very soon. And I'm optimistic that this time around the bill will be passed. But I want people to understand, this bill, 90% of this bill already exists in different forms of laws. We have 4 laws now regulating the water resources sector. We have the National Water Resources Act 2004. We have the National Water Resources Institute Act. We have the National Hydrological Services Act. We have the River Basin Development Authorities Act. These 4 acts are there. And 90% of this water resources bill just actually only subsumed all this. We don't want these fragmented laws. We just want to put them...
So it was a case of harmonization?
Yes, exactly, to consolidate them into just one water law. Then we introduced the concept of integrated water resources management. We added issues like strengthening the regulation of the water sector so that the same way we have an independent regulator for the power sector, we can have a regulator for the water sector so that the private sector can come and get involved in water resources development in the country. Without a regulator, no investor will put his money in the water resources sector at present. Maybe to some extent because of ICRC they can do hydropower projects, but that's about it. And then of course we want to empower the communities by introducing, through this integrated water management concept, we're introducing catchment management committees. As it is now under the Water Resources Act, I have a lot of powers as Minister of Water Resources to do whatever I want. I can just decide where I want to build a dam. I can decide what to do anywhere with the water resources of the country. But with this new law, with this new bill, if passed into law, I cannot single-handedly issue a water license without the catchments getting involved and agreeing. We have to have a consensus. If one community says, I do not accept this project, this water project for so reasons, and there is a debate and there is an agreement that yes, this project will have impact on the neighboring community, then it is not done. So it's devolving the powers of the minister to communities, to the catchment, to the states and to the catchment, for them to be able to determine who does what. But as we are now, if without the bill, if Kebbi State decides to dam River Niger, where the river enters the country, or Adamawa State decides to dam River Benue, who will stop them?
Only the minister.
Well,
yes, by your own admission, do you have the powers now?
Well, what I'm saying, I do, but if we don't, assuming we never had the law.
All right. Certainly, we had a very robust discussion on the issue of water resources, use, abuse, and regulation in Nigeria. Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Ruth.
And Ruth Aguele, our assistant producer of this program, and of course, our permanent panelist.
Thank you very much
for your insights. Musbah Downhub, you've shown us that you are our special representative at the Water Resources Ministry. Thank you so much for your insights as well.
It's my pleasure.
It's been a platform where we discuss water resources, use, abuse, and regulation in Nigeria. The Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, did tell us that Nigeria is rather economically scarce in water, but not that it is lacking in water. He said the country has available 1,800 cubic meters of water, and the world standard is 1,000 cubic meters. So we have water, and the problem is distribution and the other challenges associated with it. He also told us about the National Water Resources Bill, which he said the ministry or the executive will represent to the 9th National Assembly. That's Platform. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Bye for now.